Okay, geometry students, welcome to the homework help video. Let's go ahead and get started. On page 87, the following problems. Let's take a look at numbers 13 through 18. We're going to use the property to complete the statement, okay? We're going to use the property to complete the statement. Okay, number 13. We're going to use the substitution property of equality. So here we go. If LK plus JM equals 12, and let me move this out of the way a little bit, and LK equals 2, then what? Well, we're using the substitution property of equality, and LK equals 2, so where LK is right here, I'm going to substitute 2. So we would put, for number 13, you would finish it by saying 2 plus JM equals 12, and that's all you need to do. They just wanted you to take the substitution property of equality and apply it to this problem over here. So if LK equals 2, then where LK is right here, we're going to put the number 2, okay? All right, let's take a look at number 14, the subtraction property of equality. The subtraction property of equality, we have PQ plus ST equals ST plus RS. So if we're going to use the subtraction property of equality, we're going to subtract ST from both sides. So if we subtract ST from both sides, we're left with PQ equals RS. Okay, pretty simple. Moving on to number 15. The reflexive property of congruence. Well, angle COD is congruent to, well, that's pretty simple. Reflexive property just means A equals A, or A is congruent to A, so angle COD is congruent to angle COD. Okay, moving on to number 16, the division property of equality. All right, we have 3 times the measure of angle A equals 90, and if we divide both sides by 3, then we're left with the measure of angle A equals 30 degrees. Okay, moving on to number 17, the symmetric property of congruence. If segment XY is congruent to YZ, then, remember what symmetric means, then YZ is congruent to XY. Okay, that's what symmetric means. And then number 18, the transitive property of congruence. If angle A is congruent to blank and K is congruent to blank, then A is congruent to G. Okay, let's think this through here now. Angle A is congruent to blank. Well, it's got to be angle K, because that's what came next. Remember, transitive is A equals B, B equals C, A equals C. So we have A congruent to K, and then we have K congruent to angle K congruent to angle G, and I know that because of the G over here. So angle A is congruent to angle K, angle K is congruent to angle G, then A is congruent to G. Okay? All right, so not too difficult. And now if you'll notice these last two problems, 27 and 29, they gave you the steps over here. So basically what they gave you is this. Let me put another little line right here. They gave you the statements. You did not have to find those, and they wanted the reasons, okay? So let's see how we did on this. Here's the first thing they wrote. X plus 3 equals 7 minus X. Well, that's your given up here, okay? That's your given. So this right here, the reason you can write that is because it's given. That is your given. That is your given right up here, okay? All right, now we went from this step here to this step here. So what happened? Let's get a good look at it. What happened here? Well, it looks like we added X to both sides. We added X over here. So this is gone. And notice our X here, if we add X to it, we get 2X. So we added X to both sides. So wouldn't we call that the addition property of equality? Sure we would. The addition property of equality. And then we went from here to here. Now, how did we do that? Well, it looks like we subtracted 3 from both sides, does it not? And so if we subtracted 3 from both sides, we would call that the subtraction property of equality, okay? And then last, we went from here to here. Well, it looks like we divided both sides by 2, so we're going to call that the division property of equality, okay? So this is just a little introduction trying to get you used to proofs and having you figure out the what on your own, the reasons. They gave you the statements over here, and they wanted you to find the reasons, okay? All right, moving on to number 29. Let me get a drink here real quick. Now, I definitely want to state that I disagree with what they've done here. They really didn't put their given first like they're supposed to, okay? And so really their first step right here should have been PR bisects angle SPQ, okay? And that should be your given. They really should have done that. Now, they didn't, and that's fine, but they really should have done that, okay? It's always important to write your given first, okay? However, moving on, let's see what's next. We know that PR, this ray right here, bisects the entire big angle. Okay, so the PR cuts the big angle right in half. And we know that because it says right here in the given, PR bisects angle SPQ. Now remember, the definition of an angle bisector is it divides the two angles into congruent angles. So, now watch this carefully. Angle SPR, which is right here, and angle QPR, which is right here. Notice they state both of those angles are congruent. Now they can do that, that's totally legal, but what reason are they using? Well, remember, we know that PR bisects SPQ, so if we know that, then I can definitely state this right here because it's the definition of an angle bisector. Look, students, you are given that PR bisects this angle. You know that. It's given to you. So if you know that, the next thing you can state is this angle right here is congruent to this angle here by the definition of angle bisector. Now that you've stated two angles are what? Congruent, can you then not state that they're equal? Sure you can. I mean, if two angles are congruent, they're definitely equal. Now, why would I want to change it from congruent to equals? Because students, you can't use your property of addition or subtraction or multiplication or division. You can't use any of those properties when you have a congruent symbol. Remember, you have to have an equal symbol first. So what we do is we take our congruent symbol right here and we change it over to an equal symbol, okay? Now, there has to be a reason for that, okay? What reason can I use to change from congruence to equals? Well, the reason would be this, the definition of congruent angles. Students, you know you have two congruent angles right here, okay? And if you know that you have two congruent angles, the definition of congruent angles is two angles that have the same measure, or two angles that have equal measures. So because you know you have congruent angles, you can definitely state that they're equal because of the definition of congruent angles. As soon as you know they're congruent, then you know they're equal. Okay, now look what we do next here very carefully, okay? We have, let's see here, okay, we're using angle addition. Now watch this carefully, okay? We have, let's see here. We have right here angle SPQ, and that's the big angle. Here's S, down to P, and down to Q. And look what they put. They put little angle RPQ plus little angle RPS equals the big angle SPQ. And you can definitely do that. Okay, we know that we have a postulate that's called the angle addition postulate. Now, you don't have to put the word postulate. If you want to, you can. Okay, so we added two little angles together to get the bigger angle, and we call that the angle addition postulate. Now let's see what they do next. Okay, it looks like next they're going to make a substitution. Okay, now watch this. Right here I have angle RPS. Okay, now look up here at step 2. Notice angle RPS equals angle RPQ. Okay, RPS equals RPQ. So where RPS is, I can substitute RPQ, which is what I did. Okay, so the reason would be substitution. I can substitute RPQ for RPS. Okay, and now look what I have. I have measure RPQ plus measure RPQ. So I can add these two angles together, and I end up with 2 times the measure of RPQ. Now, I think in the book they call that distribution or distributive property, and that's fine if you want to call it that. It's almost like reverse distribution, but I just call it simplifying. Okay, so whatever you want to call it's fine, either distribution or simplifying, but to me, you have angle RPQ plus angle RPQ. That's going to be 2 times angle RPQ, and that's called simplifying. Now, how do I know that I'm finished? Well, look, I have written here exactly what I was trying to prove, which is right here. So I know I'm done. And again, in this problem, they gave you the statements and you had to list the reasons. Okay? All right. Stay in contact. I hope this video has been a help to you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call or email.